Hi everybody, welcome to Princess D&Diaries. I'm Sydney, and today I am also Max. Max is not feeling too well, so instead today we have a very special guest, Andy!
Hello, hello.
Yes, Andy is a friend of the pod. Andy is our DM. We play two games with Andy. Andy runs them. Andy is so wonderful. We've talked about Andy before. We've sang Andy's graces many times. We love, love, love Andy to the moon and back. But Andy, if you want to kind of give us a little intro.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me. I am also a massive fan of the pod, so I'm honored to be here. I'm Andy. I use he, they pronouns. I'm a trans mask dungeon master. I'm also a musician and visual artist and writer and do other stuff. But in this context, I'm a homebrew D&D DM. I specialize in like non-traditional fantasy settings, like magical realism and sci-fi and historical fantasy and cyberpunk, like anything that's not high fantasy, sort of my bag. I've been playing D&D since 5th edition came out in 2014. But I started DMing in 2020 as a way to keep in touch with like my long distance friends during lockdown. I find the most enjoyment running role play forward and like kind of character driven games. It's important to me that the stakes feel real, so like a cast of player characters you're attached to and combat encounters that feel earned. Pleased to be here. Thank you very much.
Yes, period. And that's why we love you, because Max and I do be loving roleplay forward games. Love a good combat once in a while, especially now that because in our Tuesday game I'm playing a monk, so that's been really fun when we have fights to get to like do cool monk stuff. But I do really like your DMing style because it's a lot of role play and getting introduced to different settings and different people. Ellis, my love, I love that NPC. um oh my god, also what's his face from the Sunday game? Oh my god, the crazy old wizard man. Oh, I can't
Oh
think of
my
his
God.
name.
I can't either. What did I call him?
I
He went
don't
through like four or five different names. I can pull up my notes really fast.
I wanted to call him Valkyrin for some reason, but that's not it.
That's
He had
pretty good. That's probably what it should have been.
yeah. Just start coming to me before you name any NPCs from now on. Don't even like go to like fantasy name generator. Just be like, Sydney, give me five kooky old man names and I'll spew them out for you.
Do you think you would have ended up landing on Raviel Dusk Whisper? Because I don't know why I
Raviel!
did.
Yes! Oh my god. Oh, actually, you know what? Ellis, who's kind of like our. He's the nexus of our friend group in the Tuesday game. He's a great
Hmm.
NPC. But Raviel is in our Sunday game. He's like this crazy mad scientist wizard sort of guy that my character got like super attached to, and I love him. I told Max it was like honestly new favorite NPC of all time. He takes the cake.
Thank you so much. He's very fun to play. I'm glad that you latched on to him. I was like, oh, he would adopt her 100%. Like,
I loved him so much. But yeah, so that's like one of the reasons why I'm like, Andy's so great. So we have our Tuesday game with Andy. For context, it's Andy, of course, is DMing. Me and Max are in it, as Max and I have talked about before. And then we have Pat, who's Andy's longtime friend slash roommate. And then we have who we refer to as Braxton and Faubus. Those are their character names. But tell us a little bit about the Tuesday road trip game. Like, how'd you come up with the story?
for sure. This campaign concept came from a couple of places for me of just like what I was interested in when I was building out these campaign listings in like December of
Yeah.
2024. And I had a late night conversation with my best friend Kate, who is like one of my biggest inspirations in the world. And we
Aw.
were talking about taking a road trip together because the world is ending. And she was like, we gotta get you like out to Texas. Like you've heard me talk about, I've like never been like out west here in the States.
Yeah.
Um, and she's been all over, and so she's like, you know what, the world's ending. We're gonna go on a road trip. We're gonna be gone for like weeks, and like, and then I also at the time was just finding like a real personal fascination with contemporary doomsday prep, like Y2K in 2012.
Yeah.
It's just like sort of the way that like modern folks react and respond to like apocalyptic threats. And so I ended up kind of combining that and some of my like D&D sort of modern fantasy dispositions to
Yeah.
make this like kind of world exploration mini campaign that has
Hmm.
like a group of close friends who use the impending apocalypse as an excuse to see the world together. And the name of it, Road Trip, was just meant to be a placeholder, but I actually just couldn't come up with anything better.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good name. It's like, you take a road trip with a group of friends, and always the group chat name is like Road Trip like 2025. So with your fascination with doomsday prepping, do you know any like doomsday preppers? Have you ever like seen a bunker or like know anybody that like freeze dries their food?
I do. So I my this is not me slandering my mom. My mom is not a doomsday prepper. My mom was an extreme couponer, though, because
Yeah.
we were very, very poor growing up in rural West Virginia.
Hmm.
And so we often had like an excess of canned goods. And the joke that they would always make growing up, my parents would just be like, when people would come over, be like, whoa, that's a lot of cans of like green beans. They'd be like, yeah, prepping for the end of days. It was like, so it was like one of the first sort of like grown up jokes I had to have explained to me. And
Everyone remembers
um,
their first.
yeah, and then I found out as I got older that my grandparents on my mother's side would like freeze things for like insane amounts of time.
Oh.
When my grandpa passed and we were looking through their stuff, we found like a bag of frozen cigarettes, like a
Oh.
pound of cigarettes
A pound
in
of
the
frozen
freezer.
cigarettes.
In the freezer.
Could
It
you
was kind
smoke
of
that?
I wouldn't. I'll just be straight up about that. I would not.
Were they in the carton or like were they
They
loosies?
they were loose in a bag.
No. Oh my god, that's egregious.
Yeah, so I've never met anyone who's like really, really like thinks the world's gonna end tomorrow, but I have been like quite adjacent to it of people who are like definitely prepping for something, you know?
Yeah. I've only ever met one doomsday prepper before. It was I used to work for a lawyer, and she was like, crazy cuckoo bananas. And we were all at Chili's one time getting dinner
Hmm.
after like a Friday, and she mentioned something. She's like, "I'm a prepper," and I got like a whole. And mind you, like this is in New Jersey. This isn't this isn't
Right.
like Alabama or like Texas. She's like,
Yeah.
I'm a prepper and I have like 50,000 guns also in my room. So like if somebody's like if I get attacked, she's like I'm shooting my way out of there. Like I'm gonna be the one that comes out alive. And I'm like, who's
What
coming? I'm like, who's coming after you?
what threats are you receiving?
The only thing I can think of is zombie apocalypse because if
Right.
she's thinking, some sort of militia threat, why are they coming to your house in New
Right.
Jersey?
And
You're not a senator. Nobody
you,
cares about what you're doing.
are you gonna shoot the bombs? Like, what are you talking about?
I know, yeah, it was crazy, but that's my that's my experience with Doomsday. Do you have a favorite memory so far from the campaign that we've played together on Tuesday?
Yes, and it's complicated. So I started thinking about this when I saw the prompt. Sorry if that's too breaking the fourth wall, but I did ask for these questions beforehand because I'm a nervous person.
Yeah.
Um, and um, yeah, I saw this question and I couldn't settle on one, and so I hope you will accept one per player character.
Absolutely. You know what? I would prefer it that way. Thank you.
Perfect. So I have them right here. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Braxton has a lot of excellent and understated moments as a character. There were some like great Braxton moments in the last three sessions, like specifically,
Hmm.
but that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about my favorite silly Braxton moment because I think that one of his greatest strengths is his ability to like cut tension. I don't remember what number session it was. It was maybe 4, the beach episode. Y'all were at that cafe, and Braxton decided to go up on stage and just like kind of take over the live music space while you guys were having your short rest.
Yeah.
And he ended up being kicked off the stage when the real performers showed up. And the person who plays Braxton just had him play it off like he was supposed to be there, but like had the dates mixed up, and he was like, "Oh, what day is it? Oh, that's my bad, man. I'm playing on the 14th." Like, yeah, it was such a funny choice. It was so charming. 10 out of 10. Chef's kiss, no notes.
Agreed. Yeah, that was so funny.
I have, yeah, all of these characters have a special place in my heart. I actually described it to Braxton and Favis, who were at the session -0 call on Tuesday, and I said that each of y'all's characters has a special place on the trinket shelf of my heart.
That's so special. Oh my god. I love that.
And they were fond of that, so I'll share it here too. My favorite Rory moment was probably the Rory is the one who's played by my longtime friend Pat, as Sydney mentioned before. Rory had this very nice, like, quiet moment one-on-one with Ellis, my sort of DM player character type, you know, the primary NPC in the campaign. Yeah. And like they were like at the gas station right after like leaving a fight, and it was kind of like a rare interaction between these two characters who are like the caretaker figures of the party dynamic. And there was just, yeah, this like, sort of like soft, vulnerable like moment that I think is a pretty true depiction of Pat in real life. Just sort of like gentle curiosity of like, I don't understand why you're doing what you're doing. Will you please explain it to me?
Yeah.
Just like, it was, yeah, very sweet, and just some great storytelling, I think.
Yeah, I did also love that moment. It was very touching.
Very, very good. In a similar vein, the other two after this are on the silly side, but the other very like poignant moment from this campaign that has stuck with me was from the previous session, and it was Favis, a moment where Favis like genuinely like kind of like touched me, like touched my heart. Yeah. It was amidst Ellis having sort of like this full-blown monologuing like meltdown, and I expected some level of like fear or like unease from the group, but instead Favis was described like placing a hand on Ellis's shoulder and just being like something like, you know, it's okay, we're all here, we're gonna get through this together. It was just like so disarming and vulnerable that like I in real life like took a deep breath. It was just like such a brilliant decision. I am just always like floored by like the grace and intention that Favis has as a character. It's just so good.
It's so similar to friendships in real life, where, because Ellis and Rory, like, you know, as you said, they're the caretakers, but when you have like a really good group of friends, sometimes when the mom friend breaks down, then you know it's okay, now it's time to like, somebody else, it's their turn, like shift the roles, like you take turns taking care of each other. So yeah, no, absolutely, it was so sweet. I loved that.
Yeah, and it like really like at the beginning of this campaign, a question that some players were asking me was like, how are you gonna sell this as a friend group? Like these sort of like very disjunct player characters who like aren't even all close in age.
Yeah.
And I was like, found family finds a way. And
yes.
Sure enough, like session 7, this feels like cohesive as hell. Yeah. Like I feel like we're hitting all of the points consistently.
Absolutely.
And I feel like we can always turn to Favis for sort of like a reliable, like poignant story beat. But Stormy, played by Max, I know that Max was incredibly ill last session, but they still managed to pull out one of my moments of the campaign so far. And you were also responsible for this.
I'm so sorry. I've
It's so
apologized many of
good.
times for this.
You have, and I won't accept a single one because Max had their character Stormy go looking for the BBEG, the villain, on like dating apps, specifically Grinder, and they rolled a critical success. They rolled a damn 20.
Yeah.
I had to go on mute for 5 minutes. I put 5 minutes on the clock, and I was just giggling maniacally to myself, like as I was just like randomly generating this Grinder profile with like D20 rolls. And like it just led to this like really funny exchange with Stormy where he was like panicking about the possibility of having to lose his virginity to this terrible evil man, but was still 100% on board to do so for the good of the cause. It was just like such a specific choice. Like, I've never had sex before, however, I am completely willing to change that if it means we can get this bad guy in a solitary location. And my primary fears about the situation are more related to the sex part than the potential of being killed. It is just everything about it. I am delighted by. It's so funny. It's just like, yeah, Max is a genius, a mad scientist.
So wonderful. Yeah, no, I would agree. I think that's one of like my honestly probably like top 2 or 3 moments from the game too. Yeah, no, it was, but also it's like, I'm gonna be so honest, Andy. I think Stormy could fix the big bad evil guy. I think I'm as someone who loves Zuko and like Katara and like trying to think of who else. I'm not like a huge like Kylo Ren and like Rey fan, but like that kind of vibe, I think
I
Stormy
mean, enemies
could fix
to
him.
lovers.
That's the
like,
yes, that's the word I'm looking for. Be giving
I'm
5
not...
examples instead of just using the term that everybody else knows.
No, for sure. I just think like I am 100% on board with you. I think Stormy could fix him with more nat 20s. Mm-hmm. Which Max has no shortage of, so
yeah,
I shouldn't speak that into existence.
I wish I was playing a bard, because then I would give Stormy every single one of my bardics to make that happen.
Just so he can make some big swing.
Yeah, just so he can get his kisses in.
So he's got to get his kisses in before the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
You gonna let him die a virgin? Okay, no. Sorry. Last but not least, folks, Karma Dogpile. It is well documented here and elsewhere that Sid is a comedic powerhouse.
Oh, thank you. Oh, that's so sweet.
And Karma Dogpile, this Cookie Monster pajama pants, hot Cheeto familiar Jersey Shore monk, is just like unreasonably hilarious as a character, and she still gets these like very, again, like poignant moments of clarity. And I'm really fond of how specifically how Karma engages with other player characters in one-on-one settings. And one of my favorite of those dynamics is Karma and Rory.
Yes.
And one of my favorite moments was Karma lying about her name and relationship to Rory to a perceived, like, untrustworthy NPC that they were meeting. She told this man that her name was Job Rim and that she was Rory's biological father. And for reference, Rory's a tiefling. He's like 5'11", I think Pat described him.
Yeah.
And Karma is a goblin and is also younger than him.
Yeah. Rory is 30, and I think Karma's like 23.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so her name was Job Rim. She was Rory's father. And it's just descended into this like incredible running bit about Rory and Karma being son and father, respectively. It's so good. It makes me giggle. You and Pat just like play off of each other so well. Um, yeah, Karma's a delight. We know this. She's the fan favorite.
Oh, oh, thank you. That's so sweet. Yeah, Max did tell me because I had a miss I think like 2 weeks ago
Hmm.
for the heist episode because I had work. And Max told me about how there was like a point where somebody was like, "What would Karma do in this situation?" Everybody was like, "I don't think we could tap into Sydney's
Yeah.
brain to come up with that."
And it was so funny because we were like turning to Max for those answers. And they did not have them. And then at some point, someone turned to me for one of those answers, and I said, "Hell no!
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I could never. All Karma does is surprise me.
Yeah, she will surprise everybody. One thing's for sure though is she will take her shirt off. And that's one
Yeah,
consistent thing about her is her areolas will be showing and it will be everybody's problem. That's so sweet though. Thank you for the kind words. I actually, you know what? Let me talk about some a memory of you that I love. I loved the. I mean, I love like the whole your everything, but specifically, I always think about, and we've talked about this on the pod before. Is there was a session where Favis, who thought he was a cleric and he was the party's quote unquote cleric, and then Ellis was like, "Oh, by the way, Favis, I had this dream about an old professor of yours. I think you might be a warlock," and just like that whole exchange between Ellis and Favis was so funny. And the thing was, we all knew that Favis was a warlock.
right.
Like I was, because here's the thing: Favis's player character was like introducing themselves in session one. They were like, "Oh, Favis is a warlock, but he thinks he's a cleric," and I'm thinking like, "Oh, haha, like it's like a funny bit." And then, even though knowing that Favis was a warlock, when that exchange between Ellis and Favis happened, where Favis finds out that he hasn't been a cleric this whole time, he's been a warlock, my jaw was still on the ground. I was like, wait, holy fuck, wait a second, what? Like, even knowing it, just like the role playing, the whole thing, it caught me by surprise. I loved it.
Thank you so much. The character creation process is always very fun, but the player who plays Favis is just like, yeah, an absolute mastermind at creating a player character with just a strong concept, a strong it. You know, they like came to me like, "I want to play a Thrycreen warlock who thinks he's a cleric," and I
Yeah.
was like, "Hell yeah, let's get into it!" Like, yeah, incredible.
Not on the list of things that I wanted to ask you, but something that came to mind. So how did you like come up with Ellis as a character?
Yeah, Ellis is loosely inspired, I guess, by this player character that I played in 2021, I think, for my friend Tim's campaign.
Ooh.
And Tim's campaign lasted like 3 sessions. We were just trying to run the one with the mist, the vampires,
Oh,
classic
Strahd?
D&D Strahd. Yes, we were trying to play through Strahd, and I was playing this. He was statted like an elf, but the lore was that he was a nymph man, which is
Ooh.
only interesting because nymphs are like a quote unquote all female species. So he's sort of like a transgender nymph. Um,
Yes, we
and
love.
he had some fancy high fantasy name that I forget, but he was just, yeah, he sort of had Ellis's voice and that sort of like putting on like a big air of confidence to cover up some like deep seated insecurities, you know, like,
Aww.
and just sort of that like, I will be the leader of this pack, the father of this group, because I have to be. Sort of like that like little bit of like self-righteousness about him.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I took inspiration from there, but I did want Ellis to like feel fully like their own person. And it's been fun. I wanted to kind of sculpt their energy to fill any like gaps that ended up being created in the party,
Mm-hmm.
because we like lost a player along the course of this campaign,
Yeah.
and
I killed
so
them.
I yeah, they're dead in real life. That's a joke for legal reasons. Um,
FBI, look into me.
like, literally look into her, like it's
Yeah.
right in front of your eyes.
Come to my
Um,
house. My door's wide open. I'm leaving the latch undone.
just
I'm
be you.
sprawled on the bed with petals waiting for you, FBI.
FBI, come to me. But I wanted Ellis to sort of have a malleable energy, and I like where it's landed. I do feel like it, like playing any like in-depth player character, it takes you a minute to like
Yeah.
settle into their final form. But I'm pretty happy with where Ellis landed.
I love Ellis. Ellis is so fun and sweet. I'm kind of glad that you were like, oh, this is like kind of based off of a PC character because we've only had one session so far because everyone's so busy. But me, Max, and some of our other three friends, we started playing a Kids on Bikes game together that I'm GMing, and almost all of the characters are just recycle characters that I came up with for when I used to Tumblr roleplay. So it's
Oh,
been, yeah.
sick!
Yeah, and so, but it's been great because it's like kind of easy because I'm like, oh, it's basically this whole town of people that I already know how to play.
100%, especially because I've been like refining and redesigning this character for like years. Like you were saying, like Tumblr role playing. Like
Yeah.
I used to do that shit too.
Wait, you did? Oh my
Yeah. Oh
god!
yeah. 100%.
Wait,
Um,
did you do like OCs, or were you like one of the people that like did fandom role playing? What was your niche? What genre were you
my
in?
my poison was OC, original character role play, which is very telling of who I became. And it would often be like set in existing settings, like when I was like a teenager, it was like Hogwarts, right, or Hunger
Yes.
Games, but it was all original characters.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and sometimes it would be like a fully homebrew setting. Like I had some friends that I made a fantasy setting with when I was like a freshman in college online, and that was very fun, and it fell apart in like 2 weeks. So like I have not done it since. But
Yeah.
yeah, kind of scratches the same itch. It's very easy to like transfer that like kind of character building information from one place to another. It's yeah.
Yeah, it's like you're like, I know you, and so I'm gonna become you.
Yeah, I walked with you once upon a dream.
I
Um,
Precisely. I did want to talk about Pat that we mentioned before. Pat, who plays Rory, who we've mentioned, another friend of the pod. We've mentioned
friend of the
Pat
pod.
before. Yeah, so you two lifelong friends, also your roommate, also played D&D together. Tell me, like, is how wonderful, or maybe you'll be like, actually fuck Pat, but like how like nice is it to have a friend that you've known for so long that also loves to basically like play pretend with you and is like so down to and is also so good at the game. Like how is it like
Yeah.
living with Pat?
Yeah, I have so many thoughts about Pat as a friend and as a D&D player and all of this. But just for the context, Pat and I met in middle school. We grew up in the same rural Appalachian small town, and our parents were good friends. He moved away from our hometown in high school, so we didn't really get like close as friends until we ran into each other again in college, because we were in the same music program.
Mm-hmm.
I attribute my entire college friend group to Pat, because on
Aw.
like the first day that I was there, we saw each other and recognized each other, and we were like, "Oh my God, hi!" And like I was going by a different name than he used to know me by, and he was like so quick to like change it up.
Aw.
And he was like, "Yeah," the like first interaction, he was like, "Yeah, let me introduce you to my friends," and just like immediately brought me over to like people whose like weddings I'm going to this year, and like
Aw.
Yeah, so like it's very, very special. And the best way I can describe him as a D&D player uh comes from the second session I ever ran as a dungeon master. Um Pat was, of course, in the first campaign I ran back in 2020. He was playing this delightful water genasi cleric named Cavier Bunks. Um, and I, in session two, introduced this like throwaway character, right? Sort of like preppy, mean boy NPC named Festus, who was
I love
meant,
him.
yeah, he was sort of meant to like provide the hook for the party's first encounter and then disappear. He was like never going to show up again.
Yeah.
But Pat as Cavier latched onto this character. And in classic D&D fashion, I had to make a lot of choices about a character I never planned on showing up again. It led to this extended arc over 2 years of playing this game where Cavier, Pat's character, and this NPC Festus like fell in love. They confessed their feelings.
Aww.
They broke up. Javier died in combat, and Festus brought him back to life with like a soul sacrifice. There was just like
Oh
this
my god.
explosive chemistry between them, and so much story to be found there, which like never would have manifested if Pat hadn't chosen to look beyond what was right in front of him to like
Yeah.
in favor of a minor detail, right? He's just like, it's so clear to me. I don't know if you know this about Pat, but Pat's a filmmaker and a
Oh, I
writer
didn't
and
know
a
that.
storyteller, and like that, I think that's just like part of what makes them like such a brilliant player is that like
Absolutely.
Pat tells stories and focus and like really likes to find what is most interesting about any set of circumstances.
Yes.
And like our existing like friendship dynamics put us in this situation where we're like constantly challenging one another to make new and bigger and more interesting choices. And like, yeah, it's amazing. We don't play a lot of D&D around the house, but Pat is a part of like every game I run, pretty much.
Yeah. As
Other
he
than the
should.
other than like my other start playing joints, every like game I run in my personal life, Pat is at the table.
Yeah.
And I'm very grateful for that always.
Yeah. Pat is also just so giving as a player. Always, always, always. Like, if Rory is having, like, some sort of, like, moment or something, Rory will always be like, XYZ, getting my thought out. Hey, so-and-so, will, like, turn to somebody who hasn't talked in a while. How do you feel about this? And I'm like, you're just so... Again, that's why it's so easy for Karma and Rory to interact with each other, because I'm like, Pat is just so giving as a player, and just also just so funny, too. He's just so
Yeah,
great. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful person. Pat, if you're listening,
which I know you are.
yeah, I'm doing
Big
doing
love.
little doing little hands with my hearts, which you can't see because this is an audio pod, but
Hands
just
with my heart.
just pretend that they're there. That's so fun though. When I lived with my old roommates in Vegas, we used to garden or drink, and then we'd just all play D&D together. We'd all just be, it would be a Tuesday night. We're like, we're bored. Like, should we just do this? Actually, you know what? When you mentioned the Fester thing, what was the phrase you said? It wasn't like looking past what's in front of you, or was it?
I think it maybe was, yeah, just like
Okay.
beyond what's in front of him in favor of
Beyond.
something small, yeah.
Yeah, the Kids on Bikes game that I'm running for Max and like our other friends, that a similar thing happened with some sort of preppy posh boy where it's like I made this NPC to kind of just be, I'm just like giving out the rules to everybody for what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here's my number. to one of like the girls in the party, like he's trying to flirt with her and be like, oh yeah, like call me if you ever need anything. I'm thinking maybe we'll get to like session 5 and she'll call in the favor, and she's like, no, actually I want you to like let us get in your car and I want you to have us take us somewhere right now. And just like I was like, fuck, I'm like, I didn't think that this was gonna happen, so like I'm having to be like, okay, yeah, cool, you know, he'll go with you. And I'm thinking they would not give a fuck about him because he was just a weird little guy, and now he's just part of the squad now. So
yeah, he's like a permanent fixture. It's crazy how fast that happens. It's,
but so fun. Yeah, it's part of the fun of
fun.
it. Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, 100%. It's like something I look forward to in every new campaign. It's like, who is the character I'm about to introduce over the course of the first 10 sessions that the party's gonna adopt? Because I know it's coming.
I love weird little guys, but also, you know who else we should adopt into the party? The big bad evil guy, because he should be Stormy's boyfriend.
Maybe. Only time will tell.
Only Nat 20s will tell. Speaking of evil guys, I wanted to talk about the new campaign that we're gonna be playing in, that you're gonna run. I don't think you have like a title for it yet, but it's the Monster Campaign, or as Max and I have been calling it, the Monster Fucker Campaign.
Damn straight.
Yeah, do you want to kind of give us like a rundown of like what it's kind of gonna be? I don't know if you can give like too much of the plot away, but if you want to even just give us like a TLDR.
For sure. Yeah, so I am still in pretty early stages of developing this one, but it was great because I got on the phone with a couple of the players from the Tuesday game on Tuesday when we didn't have a session, and I just got to like ask them about things and see how they felt about them, and it's helped me make a lot more like strong decisions. So the upcoming mini campaign is going to be like kind of a horror comedy where all of the player characters are like classic monsters. Think Halloween. I just shared, just on Tuesday, I shared a list of approved monsters in the Discord server because Pat specifically was starting to piss me off with his very specific choices of monsters he wanted to play.
What was he pitching?
I don't want to. One of the ideas he says he's going to try to rework, so I won't give that one away. But he did want to play a blob. He was like, "That's a classic monster, a blob."
And it's in D&D.
I was like, "Dog, what?" Like, I was like, "Can you walk into Spirit Halloween and purchase a blob costume? Answer me quickly. Like, if you can't, then the answer is no, my guy." I'm like, that could be fun, but in my mind, like, cryptids or, like, specific IP, like, movie monsters, that is cool, but that's a different campaign than, like, kind of... Because this pitch started as vampires, and now it's sort of expanded to be, like, classic monsters.
Yeah.
But I want to keep it royalty-free. And, yeah, so we kind of decided during this, like, session -0 with Braxton and Favis that it's going to be a high-level campaign where the party plays like a league of villains. And the goal is to kind of like build, it's going to be like mystery-centric, like all of my campaigns sort of are. But the goal is to kind of build the story out from the intersection of slapstick and horror. Just like, I want it to be like hilarious and terrifying and high stakes and like cartoony and like a much like kind of like meaner narrative than the one in Road Trip. That will include like permadeath, I think, and like making backup characters and stuff. Like, I mean, it's gonna be high stakes, like your character could die type deal.
specifically my character.
Your character.
Only my character. You're like, you know what, Sydney? I've had enough of you saying, hey, why don't we look for the BBEG on Grindr, and then somebody else getting a nat 20 when that happens.
Yeah, I'm like, everybody else makes one character, Sydney makes two. You're on thin ice.
Yeah, you're on thin fucking ice, buddy. I do kind of have an idea for a character for the game, but I'll have to run it by you. Maybe, do you want me to pitch it right now?
I would love to hear it. Especially
Okay.
if I have to turn you down, that'll make me look great.
Okay. I'm thinking maybe not monster, but human. But, like, do you watch What We Do in the Shadows?
I do watch What We Do in the Shadows.
What's his face? That's the one that's like, oh, I really want to be a vampire, so I'm gonna
Guillermo.
have to... Yes, Guillermo. I'm thinking...
The Familiar, yeah.
Yes, like, doing, like, that sort of thing. Especially if it's gonna be a league of villains now. That might be fun, but I don't know, I might also just, you know me, like, I love to do silly little voices. I'd want to give him an anime protagonist voice, where he's like, ugh, I don't really talk to girls a lot, like, ugh, there's just something about big sexy monsters that just really gets me flustered. Yeah, that would be the fun.
I, like, can't say no. That's so funny.
Okay.
Like, that's so funny. Okay, we'll talk about it more in depth.
Yeah.
In my mind, this sounds like a character that deserves, like, a sort of isekai-style transformation.
Yeah.
He needs to be transformed into, like, a magical world. So we'll figure it out, but I think it would be fun if he starts as a human and then turns into some kind of monster throughout the course of the campaign.
Yes, absolutely.
Bit by a werewolf, bit by a vampire, bit by a ghost, whatever. Maybe he just dies and becomes a ghost. That'd be funny.
Perhaps. Oh, that would be funny. Because another idea that I had was, like, because I was telling Max this, because this is, like, separate, but maybe can combine it, but I had an idea for a character that was sort of a warlock, but it's like he'd have multiple patrons, and it's sort of one of those harem animes where it's
oh my god,
like he gave his soul away to too many hot demon women that wanted him. But I don't know. Well, yeah, again, we'll talk about it.
I'm into that. That's very funny. That's
maybe
funny.
like one of them will turn him into something, but yeah, I was thinking maybe that, but that was my idea for the, but also I just like, I'm so happy, because, okay, so everybody who's listening right now, so Andy sends us a Google sheet and is like, hey, everybody fill this out, we're trying to, because road trip we knew was going to be a short campaign, but we all are getting along, we're all having fun. So Andy's like, oh, like, why don't we keep these good vibes going? So Andy gave us a list of options of what would you all want to do for the next campaign. When Max and I saw vampires on there, immediately, like, we were like, we have to do this. Because Max and I love Twilight. I fucking love, and I also just love vampires as a whole. I'm a pink bitch, but, like, I love putting on my Snoopy pajamas and my sleep mask and having my bunny stuffed animal with me, falling asleep, listening to creepypasta horror stories about people getting, like, their guts ripped out. So I love monsters. God. Yes, pastel, yes, pastel goth. That's me.
Yes.
Yeah, so I love monsters, I love creepy things, but also it's, like, I love comedy, so I'm so glad that we're doing this, like, sort of, like, I'm thinking, like, Munsters. When you said horror comedy, like, that's, like, where, like, my mind went to.
Yeah.
So,
for sure. Like, very big, very campy, over the top. Like, yeah, What We Do in the Shadows is a big touchstone for me. The movie Dark Shadows is a touchstone for me. Mm-hmm. Me and my brother had, like, a problem about that movie when we were teenagers and it came out. We saw it, like, twice in the theater, and, like, yeah, we had a problem. And I love that movie, regrettably. And, so I think that sort of, like, isn't it, like, that look at monsters that sort of says, like, this is absurd. Like when you think about it, this is goofy as hell.
Yeah.
And also like terrifying and gory and like gothic and all of those great things, but also very silly.
Yeah, that is so my
Yeah,
vibe. I'm so excited.
I think it'll be good.
Yeah. Do you have a specific monster or like cryptic that's like your favorite?
On this list, my list of acceptable monsters, if I were building a player character for this campaign, I would probably go for a demon character,
Mm-hmm.
which I think is what Braxton is gonna do, which is sick.
Oh yeah, the
But
big
I
titty
I
demon.
yeah, I also think I would have a lot of fun playing a vampire. I was talking to Pat right when I finished this list, though, and I was like, I really wish that I felt good about including angels on this list because angels are sort of like, just like, I don't know why. I think it's got to be the religious trauma. I just have a
Period.
thing. I have a thing about angels, like depictions of angels, especially when they're like androgynous
Yeah, have a
or
million
like
eyes.
yeah, like biblically accurate or humanoid. I don't care. I love angels. And I was like, I pitched Pat the concept of a D&D character who's a barbarian, and they have like an Aasimar form where they're sort of like
Ooh.
a Renaissance angel, right? Very
Yeah.
humanoid. And then when they go into a rage, they turn all biblically accurate.
Shut the fuck up. That's so
And
fucking cool, Andy.
and I was like, yeah, and also he has a boyfriend who's a demon and they're in love.
Yes! Oh my god. Let's get you out of the DM chair. Let's get you. Or can that be our NPC that we adopt, please? Oh
Yeah,
my god. I love that idea.
I can gender swap it and maybe I can make them an intentional romance insert for Braxton's character who's a demon.
Yes.
We'll
Oh my
see.
god.
We'll
Love,
see.
love, love. Who's to say? Only
Who's
nat
to
20s
say?
will tell.
Only nat 20s will tell. I don't pick up for anything lower than a 20.
Period. How did session -0 go? So for everyone at home listening, or maybe in your car listening, but I'm calling this session -0 because only 2 people were there because the rest of us were
Yeah.
either sick, had work, or Pat was engaged? Question mark.
Pat was at a concert for his birthday, so yes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I saw something about like some people are engaged. I was like, wait.
Yeah, I said otherwise engaged, which is like a very
Oh,
an
that makes
old-timey and
sense.
stupid way to say busy.
That that makes so much sense. I was like, wait, Pat's getting married? I was like, well, good.
Pat, you
I'm
never
like, good
told
for
us.
Pat. Well deserved. Like he
And
rocks.
what Pat hasn't told you is that Pat has many, many wives. There is a bit from that dates back to college where Pat, who is a person of many, many friends, decided to compile his best friends, I guess, into a list of wives. And like gender does not matter here. They are all wives except me, who is a husband, because I became transgender after being a wife already. You understand.
Yes.
And Pat has like 30 plus friends who he considers a wife. And so while Pat is single, Pat is married many times over. Don't get it
Yes.
twisted.
Hey guys, so we just cut a bunch of stuff, coming back to you from 15 minutes in the future. We were having a little diva down, but Andy, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, we've talked so much about your wonderful DMing, so what got you into DMing in the first place?
Yeah, so like of course like pandemic, lockdown, trying to stay in touch with friends. But what made me like really decide to do it was the Adventure Zone, which is
Mm,
the McElroy Brothers D&D podcast.
yeah.
The McElroy brothers of My Brother, and Me fame. They are from West Virginia, so they have a special place in my heart because we have the same home state.
Oh shit, I didn't know
Um,
that.
yeah, I just like I don't know what happened to me, but lockdown happened when I was a senior in college, and I just like got so into the McElroys, um, and I listened to like all of the Adventure Zone. There were like 5 or 6 seasons at that point. I just like listened to all of it, and I was like, I have to do this. Like the first time I, all of the first times that I played D&D, I was playing modules. Like my first ever game was Phandelver, Lost Mines of Phandelver,
Oh
with
yeah.
my younger sister and two of my cousins. My one of my cousin Ryan was DMing, and I had a lot of fun, but I had no interest in ever like running my own games because I didn't realize you could write them yourself. And I remember like even saying to Ryan at the time, being like, "This game's all right, but like I feel like I could do it better," as like a 15-year-old, right? Like just a piece of shit. And then like yeah, the pandemic hit. Me and a bunch of my friends truly had been like, we played 2 sessions of a game DM'd by my friend Erica. But she was like an essential worker during the pandemic, and so she just like didn't have time to keep running it. And I was like, would you guys have any interest in, could I like steal this party and also add my then boyfriend? And they were like, hell yeah, let's do it. And nobody put thought into their character to the point where they thought we would be playing the game for 3 years. But that campaign did run for about 3 years until my relationship ended with the aforementioned boyfriend.
Damn.
And then also another one of the players, he and his wife had a baby. And
So then you gained a player.
yeah, right? We just gotta
The
wait a
baby's
little
a monk
longer.
now, yeah.
um, yeah, but it was a very fun campaign. I would like to see it come back someday. We've all talked about it because I'm still friends with all of these folks. But yeah, it's that's where Pat's character Cavier is from.
Ooh.
And it was just like such a successful first experience that like I just wanted to keep doing it and get better at it and do it more. And it was a steep learning curve. I was not good. But I had so much fun, and I got really like intentional about where I would put my energy, and not into like making 50 named NPCs with backstories, but like, you know, instead like finding what's most interesting, what's
Yeah.
most relevant, and building from there.
So then how do you, because you run a lot of games and you also run games for events, so then what is like kind of like your prep process?
For sure. I think my process comes a lot from my background as like a musician and visual artist, where like the first thing I'm trying to do is like get ideas down, like a sketch, you know, like a first draft of a song. It's like I'm just trying to like get the ideas on the page so I can like build from them. And that's very different from where I started. When I started, I was like writing prose. I was like writing the whole thing out like it was a novel I could like predict, right?
Yeah.
And now I kind of start with these like short, like scene by scene descriptions of like each story beat, I guess. And then I just kind of like fill it out with like different written prompts. Sometimes I do write full prose if there's a scene or an environment I want to describe in more detail. But like once the majority of the writing part is done, I switch gears over to like gameplay stuff, like building encounters or expanded like lore resources or NPC character sheets, stat blocks, whatever. And the final pieces for me are almost always the auxiliary things like maps and shareable documents that are like nice to have, but the game would run just fine without.
Yeah.
And
I love a good PDF trinket.
I do too, and I can't help myself. I want to send them all the time. But yeah, I also have a sort of ritual where I start every session by rolling a d20 session roll, which arbitrarily determines the success of the session. It's always a flat roll, but I do occasionally give myself advantage or disadvantage based on the circumstances.
What would a circumstance be?
Usually it's like
Like election
based on
day?
the, yeah, sometimes it's like disadvantage, like things are going on in the world, or like I know people are sick or something like that.
Yeah.
But advantage is like I know I'm well prepared for this session, like big stuff is happening this session, like that kind of stuff I'll give myself advantage for. So I'm like, there's a pretty good chance this will go okay if fun stuff's happening.
Yeah, this might be fine.
Yeah.
Hopefully. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like we've never had, at least like my time as like one of your players, I feel like there's never been a bad session.
I very much appreciate you saying that, and I also am gonna say I think you only feel that way because you missed the heist. Um,
I did hear the heist was. Wait, did you listen to the last episode that we posted?
I don't think I did.
That's so fine. Actually, don't listen to it at all.
God.
Because we did. Oh my god. I'll tell you what happened. Because Max and I were talking about, because I wasn't there, so I usually take really really detailed notes, and so something like I think just work and everything was on my mind, and so I missed the heist, and so then Max was texting me the whole time the heist was happening, telling me what was happening. And then at one point, Max, we'll do like a diva down at least once a week where we'll hop on the voice call and we'll chat about things. I asked Max, I was like, oh, how did this go? And Max was like, oh, well, I didn't really. Like, I knew what the plan was, but I completely forgot what we were trying to heist. Like, what the overall
what
thing
the
we were
goal
trying
was.
to. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I knew what we're doing, but what we're trying to find, who's to say? And so Max goes to me and says, oh, well, I just like kept thinking like, God, like, Sydney was here, like Sydney would know what we were getting, Sydney could lock me in. And I'm like, Max, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you, I also completely forgot what exactly we were heisting, but Rory said let's do a heist, and I was like, if Rory says jump, karma's gonna be like, how high?
Yep.
So I knew the plan. So I was like, I agree. I'm like, I know the plan, but I had completely forgot. Because it was like also in our defense, it was like towards the end of the session. And it was
End
like,
of the session.
yes,
very,
and also it wasn't
end.
planned. So we were like,
Yeah.
all right, we're doing a heist, all right? Like, I could tell you
Yeah.
what the plan was, could not tell you what we were trying to get, so.
Yeah, the heist was it was a flop, and it was my fault. I think I did good planning. I think that like, the heist was successful as far as like the
Yeah.
player characters were concerned. But I was in a really bad headspace. I actually like joined the call. This is just like, I don't know, you can cut this or you can keep it in. But
Okay.
I joined the call for that session, and I was on mute for like 10 minutes while everyone else was talking, just like crying. I was like so going through it that night. But by the time I was going through it, it was like so close to session time that like I couldn't cancel, and I'd already written the session and I didn't want to delay it another week, and I was like, you know what, we're going to do it. And then something happened where like I don't even remember what, I think I left my water upstairs or something, and I like joined the call, reached over to grab my water, saw it wasn't there, went on mute, broke down. And so like I was just in like such a headspace that like I knew I wasn't being fun. I wasn't making like decisions that felt like they were in like everyone's best interest, like I feel like I normally try to.
Yeah.
And like the heist was successful. It was also like way more boring than a heist should have been, and it was a really long session. People were exhausted by the end of it. It was like, yeah, I was feeling embarrassed. I was like about to issue a public apology.
Oh my god, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, Max didn't have like any like negative like things to say about the heist. We were just both in like agreement, like, what were we heisting? Like, we forgot what it was. So yeah, I mean, everybody's got those days, obviously,
Mm.
you know. I'm so sorry that you felt sad, though. I wish you would have, like, given yourself a little cry time. Everyone needs a little sit down and cry and grab their water time.
We all do. And God bless me and Pat's other roommate, Jules, because I texted them like in a panic and I was like, Queen, please bring me my water. I will lay down my life. And they just like knocked on my door like 30 seconds later. Like they had like read
Aww.
my mind. They just like knocked on my door. They're like, here you go, hon. Have a good session. Like so
Aww.
sweet.
That's so, so sweet. Well, I hope you're feeling better now. I'm so sorry you were going through it, but
I am for sure. Thank you.
yeah, we all have bad days. There was like, oh my god, there was the first session of Fallen Star. I literally messaged you to apologize. I gardened too much. I think I forgot how to play Dungeons and Dragons. Like I was like, I don't know what I'm doing or saying right now. I was greening out and I was like, Andy's gonna be like, why the fuck did I let her into this campaign to play? I felt so bad.
Which is so funny because from my perspective, I was like, yeah, Sydney was feeling a little quiet tonight. No big though. Like
Yeah.
I really did not perceive anything as like wildly off about you. You sent me this like really heartfelt apology. I was like, girl, you're good, hon. Like,
Okay. I'm glad. I ended that session. I also just have like such anxiety. I think everybody hates me all the time. And so I was like, I'm an embarrassment. Cause I was quiet for most of it because my character wasn't getting introduced until later, which I was fine just sitting there and hanging out. Cause also just the introduction felt so natural where it was. So I was like, I don't mind that it was, and you communicated that to me. You were like, hey, I'm going to introduce you towards the end of the session.
yeah.
Are you okay with that? If not, let me know. And I was like, yeah, fuck yeah. I'd rather it make sense narratively. So I'm like listening to everybody. And also it was good for me because it's like I could get an idea of kind of everybody's dynamic and, you know, everyone's style. But then when it was time for me to talk, I'm like, fuck, I don't know how to speak. And it was also hard because I was greening out. And then I was scared. Also, I was just like nervous because I was having to do a British accent, which I don't normally do. And then because my character she's become a conscious person for the first time when we meet her, and so she doesn't know things. I'm like, wait, so would she know this? Blah, blah, blah. Because I want to make decisions of like, yes, I do feel like she would know this, or probably it's easier if she does know what this thing would be. And being like, okay, is Andy okay with her knowing that? But then like once I calmed down later, I was like, oh, probably Andy wouldn't have given a fuck if I was like, oh yeah, you know, I know what this is. But yeah, it was just so much anxiety. I was like, I need to apologize to Andy. I'm so sorry. I felt like everything I said was so stupid.
I didn't feel that way at all. I enjoyed that session a lot. I enjoy Stella a lot. And yeah, I think like my philosophy, I sent you like when you were building this character like a loose idea of like these are the kinds of things I think she understands, and like these are the kinds of things she probably doesn't understand. And like with that as like a very loose framework, I just like trust you as a player to not like take advantage of the vagueness of those terms, because I know that like any decision that you make is going to be inspired by like what is the easiest and like smoothest and most fun for like all people involved.
Yeah.
And like, you know, so I didn't feel any type of way about anything, but how are you supposed to know that when you're greened out and socially anxious, you
exactly.
know?
Yeah,
I think
I think by the second session, I was like, okay, I'm locked in. I'm fine. Speaking of highs and lows, I wanted to talk about the highs and lows of high school football with you.
The epic highs and lows.
What would you say as a DM, like, are the highs and lows of DMing? Like, what's your roses and thorns of it all?
For sure. Roses and Thorns does make me kind of like cringe flashback to my brief stint in Greek life. But
oh my god, me too. Wait, we'll talk about that later. I was also in Greek life, so we'll diva down about that. But
we'll diva down. Yeah, but I will do it Rose Thorn style. I'll say like a high and then a low. I'll just go back and forth.
Hmm.
Um, the highest of highs for me is friendship and connection. I think that Dungeons and Dragons, but specifically DMing, is an elaborate exercise in getting to know each other more deeply as creative people.
Absolutely.
Um, and friends that I've made, even just like in the last year playing online, like
Yeah.
Sydney and Max, are like what, yeah, what makes it the most worthwhile. Just like to hang out with other people and watch them be creative and have fun and play. It's beautiful. Um, a low for me is like is just burnout.
Hmm.
Any kind of creative pursuit has an opportunity for writer's block, and in D&D that has the potential to, like I was saying with the heist session, like reach outside of yourself and spread to the people around you, where like as the DM driving the van as it were, um you, yeah, like your energy is going to affect the party whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Um, and so like I don't often find myself with this group like putting on a smile or whatever, like pretending or anything. But it is just like something that I'm like, I want to be intentional and conscious about the energy I'm bringing in, and sometimes that's not possible if I'm like really burnt out.
Hmm.
Uh, and in that case, the session just gets canceled, folks. That's the only way around it.
Yep. It's
Um,
canceled forever.
it's canceled forever. Andy goes to hell and dies 10,000 times.
Period.
Um,
And I'm right there, right next to you.
all 10,000 of them. A high for me, and also just so you know, and so you can think about it while I'm yapping, I am going to throw this question back at you for a player's perspective.
Ooh, okay.
Not that you're not a game runner. I know you do be running games, but
One
just like
singular game
for
though,
the
so we're yeah.
but yeah, just for the sort of like mirror perspective of it, I would love to hear. Um,
Absolutely.
a high of DMing for me is the art of foreshadowing. I have always been very attracted to being the keeper of secrets and like the decider of how things are revealed. I find a lot of joy in like sharing a small detail that nags at your players for weeks. Um, and like, yeah, it's just really fun, especially since I run a lot of mysteries, to have that sort of attitude of like, well, nobody knows. There's like, oh, there's only one way to find out. You gotta play the game. Like, yeah, it's it's always been a very fun part of it. And this is also my next thorn is something that we talked about off the record before, but conflict, mediation, and de-escalation skills almost always become necessary at the D&D table. The joy of sharing investment in a story can often lead to like clashing ideas and interpersonal conflicts.
Hmm.
I have had this in most of, if not all of the campaigns I've run, whether it's conflict with myself and a player, like a player is unhappy with how I'm running the game, conflicts between players, um, and it's just, yeah, it's a skill set. It's like a sort of emotional intelligence skill set
Yeah.
to like mediate that kind of conflict and like find a solution that like serves people. And my last high, uh, just like collaborative creativity, like it's so rewarding to put a lot of like I'm somebody who makes a lot of artwork that I never share with anyone. I
I
have
didn't know
like
that.
yeah, I have like entire sketchbooks of watercolor paintings that no one's ever seen. I have like hundreds and hundreds of like pages of prose and like novels that no one has ever read except me, and like so something that's really special to me about D&D is that like I I will, no matter what I'm working on, I'm gonna put hours and hours of like thought and effort into a project. But with D&D, it's especially rewarding because people see that right
Mm-hmm.
away and are incentivized to react to it and interact with it.
Yeah.
And it's just really special to like put a lot of work and thought into something when you have players like y'all who show up with like curiosity and excitement and ready to like dig into every detail.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like huge, huge, huge for me as a DM. And I think the biggest low is yeah, I think it's a specific situation, but I'm sure lots of DMs will feel similarly. Um, just sort of like as a trans and queer person, as someone with like a feminine sounding voice over Discord, I run games that are centered around storytelling. I have to work pretty hard to earn the respect of your stereotypical D&D player.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no matter how many years I've been playing D&D or DMing professionally, there is always some rules lawyer module runner who thinks he knows better than me.
Yeah.
And it's just like a constant uphill battle of, yeah, kind of again and again asserting my authority, but in ways that like stay aligned with my personal values around like kindness and fairness and
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, like not I'm not trying to be punitive or punishing. I just like do like, yeah, I need a certain amount of like understanding or respect as the person who's like, making the thing happen in a way. So those are my highs and lows. What are yours?
I before I do say them, I will say I do think that you should have punished us for the grinder thing. If you were gonna punish anyone for anything, it should have been that.
I would never. That would be homophobic.
My highs and lows as a player, I think definitely the forming friendships. Like that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start playing D&D cuz I just want to meet people, especially people that are like-minded because it's such a creativity game and I love bouncing ideas off of people and going back
Hmm.
and forth. And that's one of the reasons why Max and I have become such good friends because Max is also one of those people that
Yeah.
when I play with somebody, I'm like, I want to go into your DMs. I want to talk about character stuff. I want to make a little Pinterest board for our characters' friendships and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but like some people are like, some people that's not their thing, which is to Charlize Theron, to each their own. But like Max was someone that when I discovered like, okay, there's somebody I can go into their DMs and talk about character things, and we can joke around and squeal and be happy. Like I love that, and I love like finding those people. So that's definitely a high. When I'm GMing, I think my high is trying to come up with stuff that I know that the other people will like because I've been fortunate where I haven't had to play with strangers in a setting where I'm
Hmm.
running the game yet. So I'm like, oh, these are people I know. So I know what Max is gonna find fun, or I know what my other friends are gonna see this NPC and they're either gonna think it's funny personally, and like trying to cater
Yeah.
to what I know my friends are gonna have the most fun time with. Um, Lows,
Yeah.
cis men, um,
Hmm.
just this is the Misandry podcast. No, I just like sometimes like okay, so this excludes like friends of the pod. I love you all. I love my sissies. However,
Crazy.
um,
Crazy.
however, there are some times where cis straight men just
Mm.
really grind my gears and listen, I say this as somebody who has a podcast, so obviously I'm like I love to hear myself talk, but sometimes there's men out there who just say things and nobody gives a fuck and they either try to rules lawyer, or oh my god, there was a DM that I have experience with who constantly was like trying to tell me what he thought my character would do, and it was so far
Ew.
from what the actual truth was. He kept like trying to force liking country music and liking farms on her. And I'm like,
Why?
yeah, I have no idea. I think because he liked country music, that was why.
Yeah, that's a good point because, like you were saying about like catering or tailoring to your players, it can also go very wrong. Like the campaign that I referenced that I used to play DM'd by my ex-partner, with with lots of well wishes, this DM would often try to insert things to cater to any of us, and they would often fall flat. They would just sort
Yeah.
of like miss the mark. And I've done that before with players too, for sure, that I've been like, oh yeah, like this is gonna get patched for sure. But that's the thing, like as soon as you think you can predict your players, you've gone too far. Like
Yeah.
the unknowability is the game, and like
Yeah.
you have to be, yeah. So I totally get you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was just like he was just like so far off, and just like, here's the thing, I have yet to run into either a trans or femme presenting or woman person that I've played with that has done this, but like it's just somebody that just like acts like they know better than everybody else, and it's always
Hmm.
been a straight cis man doing this.
Surprise,
So
surprise. No one's ever told you you were wrong in your entire life.
yeah, and the thing is, it's I'm a huge cunt. So it's really hard a lot of times for me to try to not tell somebody when they're being an asshole. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, those are my ups and downs. Have you ever, I mean, you talked about being in the campaign that ended that you took over with, and also in your ex's campaign, but have you like recently got to play as a player?
I have not. That campaign that my ex ran is the last time that I played as a player character, which ended in late 2022. So it's been quite some time since I have been a D&D player, and I think it is partially my fault. I'm very picky about my games and my DMs,
Yeah.
because I am a DM,
Hmm.
and I just, yeah, I have, you've played my games. You know, I have a very specific brand of D&D that I enjoy.
Hmm.
There is I would love to shout her out by name, but I am nervous to do so because I didn't get to ask her beforehand. But there is this wonderful DM in my city who used to run in-person events with the same group that I did, and I only got to like actually watch her DM once, where like my table finished up before hers did at the event, so I just got to like eavesdrop on the last 30 minutes of their game.
Ooh.
um but she was just amazing. Like she was so funny and like so like witty and so quick, and so there's been like, in the back of my mind since I met her in like 2022, I've been like, I would play one of her games. Like she's maybe
Yeah.
the only like active DM I currently know whose games I would
Hmm.
play. But now, you'll have to let me know if you ever run D&D because I'm there.
Yeah. Switch.
I would 100% play one of your games.
Max has been trying to convince me to run a game for them and like some of their other friends, because like they haven't like played in a while together. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, yeah, I can try. I'm such a pillow princess when it comes to Dungeons and Dragons, because I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, I don't know all the rules that well. I'm like, I'll play. Like, once I start playing a class, I'm like, okay, I'll lock into what I need to do, but I don't know all the fucking rules and all the
Mm-hmm.
mechanics and shit. So I'm like, I don't know if I'm prepared to run a whole D&D game, but I do love Kids on Bikes because that system does give a lot more freedom. So if you ever want to play Kids on
Yeah.
Bikes then, or Kids on Brooms.
I'd be down. I've watched people play it. I've never played it myself. I also think you could 100% run D&D. And if you're ever, you don't have to, but if you ever find yourself interested in it, I created a number of resources for my good friend Karina to start her DMing journey. She's one of
Ooh.
the founding players of my first campaign, just like an amazing storyteller and wonderful person. And she wanted to run a campaign for her family, for like
Ooh.
a big family reunion event. Um, and so made her kind of this like crash course on how to write a one shot and like the mechanics you'll need to know. And so yeah, I think one shots are a great place to start running D&D. If you're ever interested, I would be more than happy to talk with you about it.
Yes, oh my god. Yeah, if you have anything, like send it over.
I will.
Oh, did you ever watch Never Stop Blowing Up on Dimension 20?
I didn't finish it. I started it. I really enjoyed it. I'm just really bad at watching shows.
Yeah. Oh, so fucking funny. Honestly, like besides Fantasy High, I think it's like one of like my favorite seasons that they've done. However, I've had this idea for a Never Stop Blowing Up game where it's about because you know how like there's so many kid spy movies or TV
Yeah.
shows like Codename Kids Next Door or Spy Kids or Totally
Uh-huh.
Spies. I wanted to do a campaign that's like that, but it's about the parents of the spy children. So it's like these normie dads, normie moms, maybe a normie nanny or a grandparent. And all of these kids are friends and they think that their kids are super normal, and then they find out that their kids are spies, and then they have to go save their very competent spy children. And
Please
so
run this game and let me play it. One of my
absolutely.
favorite types of characters to play is a dad.
Yes.
So please, please let me know if that ever happens. I would be absolutely honored and delighted to
Absolutely.
play a
Yes.
not spy dad to a spy kid.
Yes.
That's incredible. That's such a good idea. Oh
Oh,
my God.
thank you. Yeah, so maybe one day. But yeah, we'll wrap things up now. So Andy, promote yourself, promote your Start Playing, if you want to promote your album, whatever you want.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, if you like playing non-traditional D&D, you can find me over on startplaying.games under the pseudonym Drew Sapp, because I don't want people knowing my real name all like that. But I have my hands full with like ongoing games at the moment, but I'm thinking about starting up a monthly Saturday one-shot night through the spring and summer.
Ooh.
So you can stay tuned for that if you're interested in hopping in for a one-shot. And yeah, like Sid foreshadowed, I make music. I'm in a band called Trash Honey. About a month ago, we released our debut album titled Try a Third Time, and it's available in all of the streaming places. It's kind of like genre bending alternative folk, maybe. And
Mhm.
we will actually soon be releasing a standalone podcast episode that is a full album talkback with my bandmate
Ooh.
Jules, who I made the album with, and our dear friend and literary expert Kate. So musical updates and podcast updates can be found on our Instagram, which is TrashHoneyTM. Thank you so much for having me,
Oh my
Sydney.
god. Thank you for
Prayers
being
for
here,
Max.
Andy. Yes, yeah, R.I.P. Max. Max is streaming tonight because Max is like, I gotta keep the followers happy, but I was like, you know what, you take a week off, I'll rope Andy in. So thank you so much. This was so fun. I loved this little sesh.
Yeah, this was amazing. Thanks so much for having me. I'm chuffed.
Of
I
course.
absolutely chuffed.
Yes. And we'll have you back on when Max is alive and well, because because we've had you on like the roster of like, okay, we're gonna have Andy on at some point, and then Max was like, I'm not feeling well these last 2 weeks, and I was like, well, I wanted Andy to be here with Max and I. However, I think this will be like the Billie Eilish, like, like the variety interview that like she does, where
Yeah.
it's like every year we re-interview Billie Eilish. So, but hopefully it won't be a year from now. But thank you so much for listening, everybody. See you next week.